Good morning, handymen and women, and welcome back to another episode of How Much to Charge. I'm going to go over a quick disclaimer real quick. Number one, I'm not telling you to do things that you're not licensed to do. If you need a license, make sure you have one before you do this work. Don't take any of this to mean that I necessarily do these jobs for pay for other people, although I do them on my own stuff and on friends and family, especially in Texas. But get your license if you need your license. Don't do work that you're not legal to do. Demographics. So the reason I started this is because every time I went to look up how much to charge when I first started, the answer was always, it depends, or it was, you shouldn't be in this business if you don't already know. Both of those are not valid answers. Those aren't answers to the question. So I'm going to answer the question, and you're just going to keep in mind that it is going to vary based on your location, and it's going to be on you to figure out the finer details of whether you should be higher or lower than me. Number three, this is for labor only. So materials are always going to be separate. We're not talking about materials when we're talking about how much to charge. They cost what they cost. You may or may not upsell them, but either way, this is just what you charge for labor. And finally, this is for one-off jobs only. So this is the rate you would charge if the only job you were asked to do at that address is this job. If you have a handful of jobs, they're going to get a little bit cheaper each because you kind of covered your trip fee already. So you're not going to charge, if you have three of these on this list, you're not going to just add the three of them together, okay? This is for one-off jobs, but it's to give you an idea of what to charge for these things. So, let's get started. Today we're doing tub and shower. Right off the bat, this is one of my favorite ones, is a permanent shower bar, a curved permanent shower bar. So at a lot of these rentals, people just put up their own straight shower bar, and then water leaks out from the shower onto the wall around the edges, especially by the spout, right there by the toilet usually. There's a little rotten spot of drywall, and the reason that's rotten is because water has escaped the shower. One of the solutions to that is to install a permanent shower bar, and they're curved shower bars, so they kind of start inside the shower, curve their way out, which gives you more space inside the shower, and they curve their way back into the shower, and that creates more of a cup that the water has a harder time getting out of. I do these for 125 each, just like almost everything I do is 125 because it takes under an hour, although it can be close to an hour. And then right along with that is splash guards. They are little L-shaped things that you sort of adhere to the tub and the wall on the side so that anything splashing up from the tub or any water that sort of gets along the edge of the tub that wants to roll out hits that splash guard and stops. Those are also $125. Caulking the shower. And by the way, think of $100 an hour on these, because you're going to be doing multiples of these at many properties. But anyways, if you're just doing caulk, it starts at 125 because sometimes it's pretty quick and easy. However, you do need to know there are some really bad ones out there that are going to take you a very long time. Keep that in mind. It's not an easy job when you're trying to scrape all the old caulk out and get everything clean enough for a new layer of caulk. So if you're doing this right, some of these are going to take you more than that hour, and there's nothing wrong. Quite frequently I charge 125, but quite frequently I charge 165, especially for a larger shower or for a tub with a shower surrounded. It's just in a really bad shape in terms of how much recalking needs to be done. The tub spout, $125. That's an easy job. Let me go through a list of a few that are all $125. The drain pop-up. Those are very cheap to buy at Home Depot. They take about 3 minutes to install. Overflow plate. That's the plate where when you fill up the bathtub, it hits that plate before it gets up to where the spout is, and there's an overflow in there. So to do anything with that plate, $125. Also, if you get a call to a job where the problem is that there's a leak, that there's somehow water escaping, like say it's a second floor bathroom and the tenant's reporting water on the ceiling on the first floor beneath the bathroom, one of the things I found is very common is for that overflow plate to not be tightened on and sealed. There's a rubber gasket that goes from the drain end back there to the front end, and a lot of times that gasket's gone, a lot of times it's just really, really damaged, but you want to take that plate off and check to see how well everything is sealed, because they'll fill up the bathtub to the overflow plate, and then it'll just overflow around and down the side of the tub. So keep that in mind when you do that. And if you solve a problem like that, especially if somebody else has been there previously to solve that problem and they couldn't figure it out, you charge more for that because you're the one that saved the day. Integrated drain levers, so that's on the overflow plate. The ones that have the lever, they have a little arm and a pole that goes down with a cylinder on the end, and that cylinder raises up and down on the old style tubs where you just flip that lever up or down to stop the water or to allow the water to drain. Those are sometimes a little more because they can take a little more work. A lot of times they rust out and you have to go through a lot of effort to fish out the old stopper. If you have to fish out that old stopper, charge more because their alternative was calling a plumber, and you don't want to know what those plumbers cost for that kind of stuff. And then there's the drain itself. Easy job, $125. Porcelain. This one's going to vary a lot. It's always going to be a minimum of $125. However, know in advance, especially if you haven't done these, to do this job correctly can and probably should take you if it's a larger area. Now, if it's, you can do little touch-ups, like a little chip that has some rust on it, you can touch that up real quick. But when the tub in general is in bad shape and they want it refinished, whether it's the whole tub or just a certain section of the tub that's more damaged, what you need to understand is you're going to need to clean the shit out of it. And I mean really clean it. You're going to need to scrub it, scrub it, scrub it. You cannot have any soap scum or anything like that left behind. And then you're going to have to prep it with whether it's steel wool or sandpaper, SOS pads, all types of different things, depending on the product you're using. You're going to want a very finely scratched up surface, like microscope level scratched up surface with no oils or organics on it. You're going to need to clean the heck out of it. Afterwards, you're going to need to tape a lot of stuff off, and you're going to have to do usually multiple layers. So that's a half day to a full day. If somebody wants you to recoat even just a part, just a little portion of the tub, you need to, you need to know in advance. You should be looking at like $350, $400 minimum for a decent little sized area, all the way up through $600 or $800 if you're going to spend the whole day. And that's for a satisfactory job. That's not for a really amazing, nice job where this tub looks brand new. This is for you to get a rental tub back to usable condition. Next is grout. Similar to the caulk, it's $125. It's usually a simple, quick, easy job. Carry the powdered stuff around with you that has the coloring in it, because you can also mix those together to make your own colors. Highly suggested. However, this one can get over $125 because some showers are in really bad shape with all the tile. And if you need to regrout that, part of that job is going to be getting the old grout out. Another part of that job is going to be cleaning where the grout's missing. You cannot just put grout in that hole. It will come back out later because it's adhering to essentially soap scum, not to actual surface that it's made to adhere to. So you got to clean that with toothbrush and perhaps some alcohol, some other solvents. Next, valve stems. I do a lot of these, and a lot of handymen actually don't do these. A lot of times when I get these jobs, the valve stems sent over to me, another handyman has already been there and couldn't figure it out, but they didn't want to pay plumber fees to the plumber. So instead, they end up paying plumber fees to me. So, right off the bat, if you have a tub spout that's dripping, or a shower head that's dripping, either way, if you have that drip, that constant drip, there's any number of solutions depending on the kind of tub it is, but if we're talking about valve stems, so that'd be where you have the knobs that you turn hot and cold, and then another knob most of the time to turn the shower on or off. When those valve stems are leaking, I charge $200 minimum. If the issue is that there's a constant drip in the bathtub, I promise you I'm not going to be charging under $200 to fix it, because it is going to take some work, and that work comes with some risk. There's a decent chance, even if you know what you're doing, that you're going to mess something up in there, and that you're going to have to put a lot more of your own time and energy into making it right, that you can't bill for if you're the one that messed it up. So valve stems, also very easy to keep on inventory. I do $200 minimum for just one of them, and after that I do $125 each. So if I did 2 valve stems, that'd be $250. If I did 1 valve stem, that'd be $200. If I did 3, because I'm doing the shower diverter 1, 2, then it goes up from there, $125 for each one. And oftentimes in the same home with bathrooms of the same age where everything was done at the same time, most of the time you're going to find that both bathrooms needed. So that can get pretty lucrative, and if you have the inventory, you can knock out 4 or 5 valve stems in about an hour, hour and a half. Cartridges, same thing, leaky shower. A lot of times that's going to be when you have midway up the wall and you have the lever that goes up and down and left and right, or any other number of combinations of levers. There's going to be a cartridge behind there for that lever. And those cartridges, I don't charge $200 minimum, but I do charge about $180 for that, damn near $200. And again, you have to figure out these prices for your property managers and for your area. Feel free to start below these rates and stair step your way up to them over time. I'm just letting you know where I'm at. But both of those they're not difficult. They're really not. Once you've done a couple, it's just, you do it with your eyes closed. You know exactly what's going on. But it's another one of those jobs that a lot of guys are just scared of, so they just don't do. Now, the same thing with the seals in the cartridges. Sometimes, whether it's a cartridge or a ball valve or who knows what, sometimes you can just do the seals. I charge the same because the process is the same. You still have to shut the water off to the entire house. You still have to take the shower trim piece kit apart. You still have to get your cartridge out. You still have to open everything up. And then whether you're putting in a new cartridge or putting back the old one with some new seals, the job you just performed is the same job. And by the way, I always throw a new cartridge in. The last thing you want is to replace the seals and then have the cartridge fail, and then it looks like you're the one that didn't do a good job. Manifolds. There could be some money here, especially if you're fast at drywall and stuff. The manifold is what I call, and I think it's a general term that most people call them, although they do have other names. But for the manifolds, this is where your hot and your cold come in behind the wall, and they go into, a manifold is just simply a structure, whether it's a block or a series of pipes. It's a structure that has inputs and feeds them to different outputs. So the manifold is where your hot and cold come in, and then after they come in, they go from the manifold into the cartridge or into any number of other things. When you swap these manifolds, number one, keep in mind this is not an easy job. You should know what you're doing first. I suggest getting taught by a licensed plumber. However, to do a manifold, almost always you need to open up the wall, and you're not usually going to open up the shower side of the wall because that's going to be tile or it's going to be a nice surround. If you can, you're going to go to the other side of the wall. Hopefully it's a closet, but even if it's a living room, you're still better off patching drywall in a living room and getting that nice and matched up than you are going from the shower side and getting that fixed up at the end. Now, another thing is actually one of my commenters earlier pointed out, and I've done this before, but not in a more public looking area. But if it's in a closet or something like that where you make your hole, don't put drywall back over it. Put an access panel. Sorry guys. Put an access panel over that so it can be accessed in the future. But for those manifolds, not including the drywall patching, we're just talking about getting the plumbing up and going again and then doing the drywall patching as a separate job, as a separate invoice later. I'm at a minimum of $500 for that. And so are most plumbers. So you're not going to be super expensive at $500. But that again, that is another one of those bigger jobs where you can charge more simply because it's in higher demand, because there are fewer people who know how to do it and who are willing to do it, who are willing to take that risk. And it's not super hard. Let's see, where are we at now? Shower head, easy, obviously. That's just $125 trip fee. I almost feel guilty charging $125 to swap a shower head, but if that's what they want, that's what they want, and that's what my trip fee is, and they all know that in advance. So they choose to send me that job knowing it will be $125. Sliding door rollers and handles. Now, if y'all don't have experience with this, this is another one that a lot of handymen don't want to deal with, but the glass doors that slide back and forth over a shower, those have wheels on top, similar to the slider closet doors, and you can literally pick them up off of the hinges, off of the wheels, and you can swap those wheels out. Also, sometimes the wheels are attached to a bracket that's attached to the glass, and a lot of times that bracket will come loose from the glass. Now, don't touch that unless you know what you're doing, like really know what you're doing. I did about a week of research on the first one I did, and my research included calling some plumbers and asking them, just asking around with my friends who knew licensed plumbers, and asking them as well, because what I needed to know, and I know plumbers don't do shower doors, but plumbers know a lot about different adhesives and stuff and how they're going to stand up to water. So I did tons of research and eventually figured out, yeah, there is a good solid way to reattach that door, but I want to reiterate, if you're not absolutely certain, don't go watch one YouTube video and do what it said. If you're not absolutely certain that that door is going to stay in place when you're done, don't touch it at all. If that door falls and breaks on the tile floor, or anything like that, if it falls and breaks and somebody gets injured, you bet your ass they're going to sue the property management company, and who's the property management company going to go after? You. Plus, you could end up being involved in as far as, let's say you have a license, your license could be at stake depending on what license it is for having made a mistake like that if you got reported to the registrar of contractors. So, however, when I do them now, I do them at home. So I make two trips. I make a trip to pick up the doors and I bring them to my house. So that's $125 right there. The time I spend on them at my house, I charge less than $100 for, because it doesn't take much time once you're doing it. And then another $125 to go reinstall them. And I typically caulk everything up real good while I'm there anyways. But so that's a nice lucrative job, but I'm reminding you, don't touch that stuff unless you know what you're doing. Exhaust fans. These are not exactly showers, tubs and showers. However, it's the most closely related. So exhaust fans, as a handyman, you're going to do a lot of them because the motors go out on them. It's not a bread and butter job. It's not as if they're every day, but it is so often that I'd call it like one of the 10 essential skills you're going to have as a handyman. So for the exhaust fan motor replacement, I do $125, and that's pretty close to a fair price, because to get it done correctly and have everything reinstalled nice and clean, that can be up to an hour, depending on what style and version you have. However, I want to upsell y'all here, or I want to tell you when to upsell, rather, to upsell your tenants, or your clients, your property managers. With these exhaust fans, a lot of times one of the problems you're going to find when you show up to a place that doesn't have a working exhaust fan, the tenants probably didn't say anything about it for months, and what you're going to see is a little bit of paint peeling down from the ceiling. Now that's got to be fixed, and that's not a cheap fix. That's usually like a $350 fix for me if I'm doing that, because you got to take everything out of the bathroom, you got to get your tarp down, you got to scrape everything, then you got to scrape it a little more, then you got to skim coat. There's a lot that's involved, and you want to put some good primer on there and some paint. So that's a very large job that I charge good money for. To prevent that from happening in the future, and this is something I'm starting to do with one property manager that I suggested this to. From now on, every single move out we do, the bathrooms are getting the switch for the exhaust fan. They're getting replaced with moisture sensing switches. These are not hard to install at all if there's already a switch in place and all you're doing is installing the moisture switch. You can charge more for that because it just feels technological and harder and different, so you could charge maybe $180. You know, right now I'm only doing them on move-outs, so I'm charging $100 plus materials. So in other words, added to the cost of the total move-out, I'm just adding $100. I think the switch is about $29, $34, somewhere in there. And what these will do is sense the humidity in the air, and it will turn the exhaust fan on whenever it needs to be on, and you're no longer relying on tenants to decide to turn it on and leave it on long enough to dry out the bathroom. And last but not least, shower drain covers. Almost always $125. However, in a lot of these rentals, there have been handymen in the past who didn't understand how these things fit together and how they work. So they've done a lot of rigging up of things and cementing things and using just all sorts of different anchors. So you may end up with a rusty one that needs to be cut off and completely redone. That's going to go up from $125 there. And that covers tubs and showers. I'm going to try to be knocking a whole bunch of these out for y'all. So thanks for tuning in. I hope y'all are out there killing it. Have a great one.